Belge drolor zambe zeparch Balden lame shabla solvade Oma Guru Vajradara Sumati Munisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Vajradara Sumati Munisha Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Vajradara Sumati Munisha Saneka Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Vajradara Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Vajradara Sumati Munisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Vajradara Sumati Munisha Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Vajradara Sumati Munisha Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Vajradara Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Dagi Jetsun Lama Tuje Che Nyamda Dala Tuje Siksu So Gebe Shesan Dala Tendu So Uyon Sungi Nawa Tsedu So Tseji Ningne Solwa Debe Tse Dejen Korlo Visu Lekshune Yela Sambe Dede Malupa Beme Lungi Drubra Chingi Lo Tsoni Sodan Dikdun Shapetse Dungi Namke Yisu Lekshune Lapchen Tsoni Yonsu Zopa Chera Nidun Chamra Chingi Lo Chancho Pargi Ninsen Tukuntu Niu Beme Sudru Lekshune Chancho Drube Gegen Kunshishi Tingen de la drubra chingi lo dagi lo na chola chokpa dam Shiwa dan chodan tumbe dede ma lepa beme lungi drubra chingi Dorna tingne tsera tamche dan techi pardu nekav tamche tu Tukche chingi dala siksu so gomgyab drewe nyamda dacha la chetsun lame tuche rabgong Kudan sungi nawa dralme tu nyam sunyongwe kesan toprasho Kewa kundu yanda lama dan rame cheki pela longche chi Sadan lamge yende rang dorje changi kopa nyur toba sho Pakyuke kudan dagi olu Pakyuke sundan dagi nga Tukdan dagi yi Ten yerme chiktu chingi olu Makyuke kudan dagi lu ma kyuke sundan dagi nga tenyer me chiktu chingi lo Mahamuni Shakyamuni So shipuki chushime to tamare ravalinga shi ni de ampadi hintum mikte ulvarki drokunanam dashin la chöpar shoyidam guru ratna mindrala kam niryatayami Sangye chedan tsoge chonam la chancho pardo dani kyapsu chi dagi jinso gibe sonam ki nel Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. Namo elaye kedal vedan jinge drubunda dami kenamda drowa kuinge dranama che tsampa tamche ketu dagi chuten.
Good morning.
Come abbiamo detto diverse volte,
As we said several times, in time, in history, in traditions,
quando ci sono cose abbastanza importanti che dobbiamo fare,
when there are important things we need to do,
non vengano dimenticate,
very often,
si trasformano
not to forget about them,
in cerimonie,
they
rituali,
transform into ceremonies, rituals,
fare questo, perché una volta l'anno devi fare quell'altro, in questo modo, in quell'altro modo,
So
eccetera,
they
eccetera.
have
E sono cose che
different dates or
dare
times,
grande importanza,
as we want to give the right relevance to them. Very often, if we just don't set up a celebration, we tend to forget about them.
una delle cose che nella tradizione buddista viene dato molta importanza sono quelli che vengono
In
chiamati
the
rituali del
Buddhist tradition, the seven branches rituals,
cosa che se noi andiamo a vedere è presente in tantissimi posti, quindi
this is a very important
meditazione che si va a trovare
ritual in different meditation practices like sadhanas.
yoga è basata su
The Guru Yoga practice is based on the seven branches: meditation, prostrations, offerings, purification, rejoicing,
chiedere insegnamenti,
ask for teachings,
rimanere
request
fino alla fine del
to
samsara.
be with us until the end of samsara,
Però
and so
oltre
on.
che un passaggio all'interno di una pratica,
But besides a passage within a practice,
farlo
this is something that we need to integrate in our daily life,
in ogni aspetto.
in every aspect.
Ho cominciato a riflettere non da tantissimo
That is something that I started to reflect
che
upon
quando prendiamo le
recently.
varie cerimonie, per
When we take into the consideration these kind of rituals, we should try to understand what is the deep meaning of it and how can I integrate it in my life beyond the mere ritual of it. If I have to do the 7 branches meditation once a day, I will just do the practice. And that's done. Commitment is done like this. But have I really done the 7 branches? In my case, in this moment, no, I'll be frank. I can just close my eyes and pretend to be more concentrated, but in the end, after all, I haven't done them properly. So today I would like to touch base with one of the points, which is not the easiest one, something a bit more difficult to integrate in our daily life, which is the 4th branch, rejoicing. So rejoicing, so celebrating, remembering the good things and feeling joy for what happened. This is very important for us. When we rejoice, mainly there are 3 objects of rejoicing. Virtuous actions, so joy for the others. The others are divided into 2 categories, holy beings and sentient beings, and our own actions. Then we can divide it even in further categories, but these are the main ones. Our capacity to remember something positive that we have, something we have done ourselves, or something made or experienced by another being, and allow ourselves to feel the joy. It's said that from a physical point of view, also because in our times there are several studies in neuroscience which often give an explanation, a scientific one, to things that in the Buddhist tradition have been there since a long time. So it's said that from a physical and chemical point of view, when we remember something pleasant or beautiful, when we rejoice, when we remember something good, this activates within us a natural, pleasant feeling. Interesting is that in our mind together, in our body together, what we imagine, we live it in a present moment as it was a real experience. We spoke about this several times. When we visualize something, we imagine something. My whole system lives it as if I was living it, as I was experiencing it live. In our society, we have too much imagination, not in a good sense. When I worry about Thursday that I need to leave for Brazil, if I miss my flight, why? Because once I left for Brazil, and while I was driving along the highway, I left actually ahead. There was a huge traffic due to an incident in the tunnel. I was stuck with my car, and I get to the airport really last moment before the check-in was closing. So I got there, they said it's closed. I said to the hostess, to the attendant, that I actually had still 1 minute. She said, okay, so come in. So now I could imagine what happens again if I miss my flight and so on. That's pure imagination. But if I imagine, my system reacts. So when I imagine something pleasant, my system reacts like if something pleasant was happening. If I imagine a situation where I feel protected, safe, loved, my physical and mental system, which go together, will react towards that. Opposite, if I think about something that is threatening or negative, then my system will prepare to face menace, to face threats. So this will be a response to stress. My imagination response is incredible, and everything that we think about the present, that we think about something that is not the present moment, is pure imagination. Of course, about the past, I'm remembering rather than imagining. Have you ever noticed that you've been living a situation, telling it to other people, and the more you tell about it, the more you add details. So if I experience something and I want to show off that I was the victim, I will put emphasis on certain aspects. If I want to show that I was brave and courageous, I will emphasize other type of aspects. Some people would just add some poetry and add more details. But after having told this story about 3 times, we will get to a point that where we will not be able to distinguish between what really happened and what we told other people, adding some colorful details. For example, I have some memories and I'm not really sure about how much I can trust myself about those memories. Then, when we have 4 different people talking about an event, there will be 4 different versions about it. Very often, when we talk about our past, our imagination takes a toll. And same thing happens when we imagine the future. But here, I just wanted to remind us that we need to use well our resources, including our imagination, because it does have the power to induce us to psychophysical states. The more we experience certain states, the more we familiarize ourselves with these states, and they will be part of our being, of our life. Remember that mind and body are fully together. Nothing happens in the mind without having an effect in the body and vice versa. Body and mind are totally connected. So, in other words, the more we induce ourselves in experiences where we feel good, where we have a physical and mental well-being, the more we can repeat them. The more we repeat experiences where we experience a negative state, the more we familiarize with them. So when we imagine something, we live it. And our system, the physical and mental one, together, being together, reacts towards an imaginary state as if it was real. And this is why doing the sadhana's work. And that's why several meditation techniques work. We use this aspect in our favor, but very often we use this against our benefit. So every time I complain about something that happened, I connect with the negative part, with something that didn't work out, and I kind of live it again. So I reinforce unsatisfaction, negative feelings, and every time I imagine things to go bad in the future, I activate a stress response, cortisol, inflammation, and so on. Something we are unfortunately too much used to. So rejoicing, celebrating, in other words, remembering good things, uses the same mechanism. I get in touch with something positive, joyful, beautiful, and my system reacts to it. Whether it is imagination towards the past or imagination towards the future, I react the same way. In Buddha's explanation, within Buddhist teachings, it's said that when we manage to rejoice properly, which means feeling sincere joy for something virtuous that happened, this is feeling joy towards something that beautiful that happened, virtuous that happened. When we rejoice for an action done by another person, is divided into 3 categories. If the other being has a spiritual level which is above ours, so more compassion, more love, more stability, wisdom, and so on, we will generate about half of that positive energy generated by the other being, which is a lot. Rejoice is the best practice to accumulate positive energy. You just sit there, no need to win the Olympics or anything else. You just sit there, imagine, and earn, remembering what incredible things Lama Tsongkhapa accomplished. So if you manage to rejoice properly, you generate punya, which is the positive karmic force. If you rejoice about someone which has the same spiritual development of ourselves, we will generate the same amount of positive energy. And if we rejoice about someone who has a low spiritual realization, we will generate even more energy that was generated by the other being. So the point here is not about calculating, accumulating Esselunga supermarket points. Here is about seeing that rejoicing and celebrating has a huge power. There's another characteristic which is very important. We have a weird aspect of our mind. There's a whole explanation behind it. However, when we experience something, we tend to take the last part of that and generalize everything that happened before. So we eat at the restaurant, for example. Food is delicious, conversation is delightful, the location is stunning, and then at the end there's an argument when paying the bill. How was your dinner? Very bad. No, that's not the case. Food was good, conversation pleasant, but payment was awful. But the dinner wasn't bad at all. we tend to take the last part and generalize everything that happened before based on the last bit of it. Another example, there are many studies about it. I can't remember the details, but it's something about people had to choose an experience where the same amount of electric shocks or pain experience was the same for everyone. But they had to experience a little bit at a time, or overall more pain and at the end less pain, or together less pain but ended up with a lot more pain. And people would choose where. What do you think did they choose? They would choose the second part. We're not very intelligent. So we tend to take an experience, choose the last part and generalize a whole based on that. So we do something extremely beautiful, but at the end we're extremely tired and have a bad reaction. We will not be inclined to repeat that experience. We will just say we will not do it at all instead of trying to manage it in a more sustainable way. So I will not go to that place again because last time it ended up not that well. Do we recognize in this? So, in the relationship with the other person, for example, if there are many beautiful aspects in the relationship with the other person, if we start having conflicts and tensions, we generalize the relationship based on those last parts. Instead, when we have the capacity to celebrate, we live something beautiful and celebrate it. In other words, rejoice. But I will use today the word celebrating. When a celebration takes place, so we verbalize, we materialize the memory of this beautiful thing that happened. We fix in our memory that positive thing. And this allows us to go back on that memory later on. So every time we do virtuous things, positive ones, it is important to go back and remember the beautiful things that happened. This morning, for example, I was trying to go through summer. All the activities we did at the center, we did lots of things. We started with the pujas, the yandrup, the long life puja, the sand mandala of Yamantaka, the Rabnachemo, 10 days of teachings on self-healing, the retreat, this new experience of Dharma in nature, putting emphasis on the breath, the practice of Kurkule, and now the Toja Shutten retreat with yesterday's conclusion with the fire puja. So many things. And it is very important for all of us to celebrate the good things we experience, because celebration has this characteristic of materializing the joy of everything. So we eat, we drink, sing, cheering towards that specific thing. We hug each other, feeling the emotion because something happened. This is very important. Buddha said we should do it every day. We don't have to get drunk every day to celebrate something, but we should rejoice more. Every day, seeing, reviewing what happened in our life, in our days, remembering positive things, beautiful things. When we remember certain aspects, they grant us a special force, a special power to face the present. A psychiatrist once told that once we had to do couple therapies, so there was a couple that presented a special problem, of course went to him when they were facing a crisis moment. He would generally ask, how did you meet each other? In the moment they would start talking about something that was pleasant in the past, going back to the memory, created a basis to face the current difficulty. Is it clear? Instead, if we connect with difficult memories, another example. Today, I woke up with pain in my right hand because the day before yesterday, I was working on the sword that I offered to the protector, and I engraved mantras about 4 hours with a little tool, so that my hand was quite painful at the end of the day. After the fire puja, I had a treatment, but I woke up again today feeling quite a lot of pain in my right hand. I will not go back to the memory and say I will never do fire pujas or working on the sword again. Of course, no. If I had to repeat what I did, I would do it 1,000 times again, because there were many beautiful, joyful, virtuous, important aspects about what I experienced. But if we only see the negative part, what did not work out, what we didn't like, if we concentrate on that only, it will take us to imagine the future based on that only. So it is important to remember, when we do something, in the good and bad, our system will react based on that. The more we celebrate, rejoice, connect with the positive aspects in our life, the more self-esteem, trust in the future, joy this will give us. We need this a lot. If we focus on negative things, complain about them, it's the same on the contrary. However, doesn't mean that we need to close our eyes towards difficulties, towards challenges. One thing is one thing, another thing is another thing, as we say. I went to the restaurant, food was delicious, but when I was paying the bill, something did not work out because it was too expensive, or because I had an argument with the other person who wanted to pay instead. Next time, I will think about that. I will remind myself that the food was good, conversation excellent, but we will need to pay extra attention to the moment where we pay the bill. Because the mistake we often do is to avoid generalizing that the dinner was a success. We pretend nothing happened at the moment of paying the bill. This is the other extreme. To avoid generalizing everything in a negative sense, we have this self-defense system where we pretend that even the small negative things never happened. everything was 100% smooth. But the beautiful thing is to be able to recognize the light and the shadow and bring the light in the shadow. One thing doesn't exclude the other one. We need maturity for this. An attitude which is propositive, proactive, without feeling the victim, without pointing our finger towards something that didn't work out, but looking at the solution. And remember not to generalize one thing on the whole experience. Is it clear? I see many situations where someone didn't have a positive experience without entering too much into details. And it is right to be able to recognize something which was not a positive experience and how to avoid it in the future. But good things also have to be recognized, and the contrary also. This allows us to be able to see how beautiful this happened. Another example about myself. I had very difficult situations. A couple, for example, which on the other side taught me very important lessons. So there's this bitter and sweet taste. On one side, so beautiful that I could learn this. Look what I become today. And on the other side, there's a scar, a wound, which reminds me that that experience was painful, still hurts. How beautiful the 3 pujas of yesterday and preparing the gift for the protector, but my hand hurts. So it is important to see all the aspects of something that happened. Nothing really bad about my hand, but this is an example to remind ourselves that we need to take care also of the negative parts. So if there is a difficulty, we take care, we look at the solution. So be able to have both sides together, as Buddha described in the 7 branches. The third one is admitting openly our mistakes, and the fourth one is rejoicing. We should do this every day, which means I recognize the shadow and I see the light. Where I see shadow, mainly mine, rejoicing means rejoicing about ourselves and the others, but seeing the shadow, admitting our mistakes, should be related to ourselves only. We cannot change what happened to others, but in general, in situations we experience, it is good to see the shadow and see the light. But in front of the shadow, the question is how me, which I did not live that experience very well, what can I do in my life? What is the attitude I can have to learn not to repeat that dynamic with myself? So admitting openly the mistake, recognizing where the shadow is, what did not work out, so that I can avoid it in the future. So these 2 kind of attitudes need to go together, admitting openly our mistakes without entering too much into feeling the victim or pointing the finger, but being merely in a learning process. This doesn't work, I will not repeat it. And on the other side, seeing the other part, seeing the light, celebrating and rejoicing. One of the most powerful things we have is our words. When we speak, we naturally materialize our thoughts, our feelings, our ideas. When I verbalize how beautiful, how pleasant, I remember it, I tell about it to someone else. When someone tells me about beautiful things, I live my experience imagining the tale of the other person, and this also generates a certain reaction within myself. So, speaking about something, telling about this to other people, we should do it in a more systematic way. The 7 branches have become a ceremonial aspect, a ritual of our daily life. So every time you sit down for Guru Puja or Guru Yoga or preliminary practice, everywhere you will find the 7 branches meditation. As I said in the beginning, I admit openly all the negative actions. I rejoice about all the beautiful and virtuous actions. The fact that I say it, it does have, of course, a certain effect, but it has to be done with a certain awareness. So, let's start creating more and more the habit of rejoicing, especially when we get to the end of certain period, event, experience. Let's review everything that we experience, reminding ourselves the beautiful things that happened, celebrating, telling about this to other people, writing down about them, doing something to remark them. This is very important, and we should integrate it in our daily life. Today is September 2nd. Being Monday, we can say this is the beginning of September. Someone will say, summer is over. And someone else will say, look at the beautiful things that I did this summer. Look how much I learned. And allow ourselves to remember one of the things that I do, the 2 tools I use. There are so many things that happen in life, so I need to concentrate to go back. And I use these 2 tools. One used for the faraway times. I check the photos on my phone with dates and look at the pictures saying how beautiful that event was. So this is a way to keep the memory and go back to those times and rejoice about them. And the other is going through the agenda. Look what happened, how many things we experienced at that moment something happened, and review everything that happened. If we were able to review once a week what happened, but mainly when an event or a period comes to an end, it is important to go back and review and celebrate all the beautiful things that happened. But the topic I wanted to tackle today is a different one that I'm briefly going through now. There's a term called, which was used yesterday by the Oracle, which is often misunderstood. Genshokoren refers to the order of respect, kind of hierarchy,
però non è in realtà una gerarchia.
which is not really a hierarchy where there are acquired rights. It's the fact that we live in an interdependent reality, which, in order to work well, it has rights and responsibilities. So if I go to a restaurant and the waiter, in the relationship between waiter and client, there are rights and duties. If I'm sitting at a table, I expect that the waiter brings the food to my table, but I also have some duties, some responsibilities. For example, respect, pay for the service I receive, different rights and obligations and responsibilities and duties. And this happens at every level, with the parents, with a spouse, with the friends, siblings, sangha, work, spiritual guide. And there's a sutra of Buddha, Singalovada Sutra, which was taught here in Albagnano by Lumpo Tata, the Sutra of the Six Directions. It said that the social structure of a person is made of 6 types of relationships, and for each of one, Buddha describes the rights and the responsibilities and the duties, which is the relationship with my father, with my mother, my siblings, friends, teachers, spiritual guides, with who works for me and with other people which belong to my life, which are not friends or work or family, but all the others. And every kind of relationship has a huge importance for us. And if we learn how to properly relate with them, putting emphasis on our responsibilities, not only on our rights, because very often when we talk about respect, I label myself in a certain way and everything is kind of granted to me. This comes with other responsibilities, because we also have to offer and do something for others. So it's not about only acquired rights, because I am this, because I spent 10 years doing that. For example, when we went to the USA, Trijang Rinpoche said it is important to have respect between people, but also a person who has more experience should be respected by people who have less experience. But also this person needs to behave based on that and manifest certain qualities, show that something works, transmit it, and do everything which is related to his or her position. So it's not about putting labels so that we have acquired labels. It's a matter of learning how to interact properly with other people. One of the main essentials in the practice is humbleness, not comparing with other people to see ourselves, not needing to say that we are better than other people because I've been doing this for 5-10 years, I'm tall, I'm short, I dress up better than you, and so on. There's a sentence of Buddha Buddha says a being should not judge another being, and doing that is cause of degeneration of the being himself. That means I don't know who is standing in front of me. Whoever is in front of me, what are his or her qualities? Like it recently happened in the Serpent monastery in India. There was a monk, his nickname was Dimakara, out of his mind. He was seen as a nice person, but he wasn't very respected because he wouldn't follow the standards which people would experience. Then he died, and at the moment of death, he stayed in the clear light, which is clearly seen because the chest remains tepid, a little bit warm. And when this happens, it lasts 1 or 2 days, usually 3-4 days maximum. And he stayed in this state for 6 weeks. And everyone was overwhelmed. Over 800 people were surprised, stunned by this fact, because they always treated him as a regular, not so special person, but actually he had several qualities which they were not aware of. So we should treat everyone with profound respect and ourselves not enter the dynamics of feeling superior or inferior when compared with the other person. Depending on our experiences, we need to react. So if I'm more experienced in cooking zucchini, for example, and I see that you're not experienced in that, I will help you, I will teach you. As simple as that. It's a matter of functioning the best we can in this system of rights and responsibilities. This is important because, after all, it's based on not comparing with other people, but recognizing the qualities of ourselves and of the other people and offering them to the world in the best way we can. Not being stuck in labeling, I'm this, I'm that. This is something we should overcome. And also the oracle said that you should be united. Being united means having a general label, an over one. Is it clear? If I label, I'm tall, the other is short, I'm fat, the other is thin, I dress up this way, the other that way, I have this vision, the other has that vision, and so on. The more separate labels we create, the more separation we create. Instead, we should have a general label so that we can identify ourselves in a common thing. And we should be able to do this in every kind of setting. Of course, here the center, obviously. Even in other settings outside of the center, when I'm in an environment where people have a different culture, being able to see that we are on the same boat, we're all human beings, sentient beings. Being able to include rather than exclude. The wrong attitude that I see very often is, if I came to you and said, you should be all united, and then pointing the finger towards who is not united. So Lama said that we should be united, and then we point the finger towards a person that that did something special against this topic. Or maybe dividing ourselves into groups and fighting against each other for the group that is more virtuous in this direction of being united. So we should find a common unity, embrace and welcome the others, rather than forcing the other persons to do something specifically. So this is the topic I wanted to tackle today. But also rejoicing is very important, so we were kind of stuck on that. So I rejoice very much about what happened in these past days. Today I will go to Milan to start Wednesdays at Kumpen events for the new season. On Thursday I will leave to Brazil. I'll spend 2 weeks there. I will be back on the 19th of September, and the 24th I will leave again. I will go on this brief pilgrimage visiting some people to review the situation in Lhasa, Shigatse and Tibet, and create a basis so that we can go on together. Initially my idea was to go to Tibet together, but there were two reasons. One is, when the bike is big, we need to cycle more, and the center here has grown so much. If I said, let's spend the summer in Tibet, then, so the past summer, our center needed our presence very much. So I decided to stay here this summer. And also, I need to go to Tibet first, check the situation. So I decided to go briefly to Tibet in September and come back. There will be a World Buddhist Forum, and then I will come back. So save the date for next year. My objective next year, which is an objective, nothing is organized, would be end or mid-July for 2 weeks to go to Kathmandu, then Shigatse, Lhasa, via land, and then on the way back, for those who can handle it physically, is to go around the Kailash mountain, 52 kilometers, 5,000 meters altitude. So please make sure you have a certain level of preparation, because I don't want to abandon anybody there. And this is not a joke. This is a wish I have, but I'm still strong to do it. In 10 years, I'm not sure I will be able to do it. So now we have the conditions to do this. It's a dream that I would like to realize, to circumambulate Kailash mountain. Usually it's done in 5 days, 10 kilometers per day. But given the conditions, the altitude, 5,000 meters, so it will be very challenging. But we will have the 2 weeks where we will travel to central Tibet by bus. These are special places, especially for those who have a contact with our lineage, to find these places and connect. There's an inner important process that happens. So I invite you to save money and time to leave next year for this experience, for this voyage. That's all for today. I want to thank all of you, not only for today, but for the past summer and in general to be here together.
Anche se io questo prossimo periodo non sarò.
Please continue, even if I will not be here at the center, please continue as you are already doing to take care of everything of the center, work-wise, with your presence, doing the practices, being all together. So we will do the dedications.
Jetsu lame kutse rapten chin nam kartin le chokchur gepada lo san tempe drame sasum ki drove munsel tatu ne gyur chi kiwa kuntu yanda lamada dralme chiki pela longch dorje changi kopa nyurto sho nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan dele kshin concho sumki trashishu all'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante il giorno, possano i tre gioielli concederci le loro benedizioni. At dawn or dusk, at night or midnight. The auspiciousness. Sem Chö Sudro, Chö Lam Tudro, Lam La Parche, Miyom Rasho. Possa la mente diventare il Dharma.
May the mind become the Dharma. May the Dharma become the path.
Possa il
May the
sentimento
path
da
be free from interferences.
May the mind become the Dharma. May the Dharma become the path. May the path be free from interferences. Trescitele. Buona giornata a tutti. Chi vuole passare adesso per un veloce saluto, benvenuto.
Who wants to come for a brief goodbye? You're very welcome.